Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the Life Reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Welcome to The Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist and author and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm so thrilled to have you join me today. I promise you're going to enjoy the conversation as much as I have. And in this episode, I actually talked to Kirsty Dunlop. She is a motivational speaker, a trauma-informed intuitive coach, and a certified sound healer and a Reiki practitioner. I've known her for almost 10 years. It's an amazing, and we talk about how we got to meet each other and her journey through so much of her own healing and how, due to that, she decided to also become a healer toward people's trauma. So through rhythmic breath work, meditation, and voice activation, she guides you on a journey of truth-seeking and self-discovery. For the past 15 years, Kirsty has intuitively guided women and men into soul-level transformation to tap into their emotional, physical, and mental life experiences and discover their authentic self. We shared about her journey and how from someone who was in corporate world and was suffering from a lot of internal concepts. She didn't even know she was succeeding in all levels. And finally, she started looking at some of her vulnerabilities and where she needed to tell the truth. And, from TEDx talk to going toward her journey and how a lot of the memories that were there before showed up. And it took her to an amazing self-healing journey, and she has brought that to everyone that she works with. And I really hope that you enjoy what we talk about. I truly do. Every time I'm with her and I meet with her, I really get the how the authentic self can go in and powerfully look at our vulnerable spaces inside and how to shine, how to bring them up, and how to be powerful. You can find her on any of her social media. The handle is @KirstyTV, or you could go to KirstySpragan.com and you can find it on the notes here. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on my YouTube channel and connect with me through my website. I love to hear from all of you. So connect with me at FoojanZeine.com. If you guys want to do your own self-discovery and journey, definitely go to the Foojan app. Or to Foojan.com, and you can get the app from there on Apple or Android. There you can go through 31 areas of your life and really transform yourself through the app also. Share with me your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, here's Kirsty.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
I am so excited to have Kirsty Ekal-Dunlop with me. It is so nice to see you again.
So nice to see you too.
So all the way from Mexico, we have this wonderful, beautiful speaker, author, the host of Kirsty TV with us. And we were just chatting and say, oh my God, you and I met at a fashion show. We were both there for Sue Wong's fashion show. And somehow we just clicked and connected. And then you had your Kirsty TV and you wanted to talk about secrets and how to open up secrets and what it had for us and the transparency. And you invited me to be on your show. And it all began from there. My God, how many years ago?
I think when I looked on Facebook this morning for a photo with you, it was 2015. So I think it was somewhere around then, 10 or 11 years ago.
And so much has changed for you, for me, for both of us, Kirsty. I have watched your growth. I have watched how you have transformed yourself and people you work with and the audience. And it's beautiful. So I just really wanted to have this opportunity for everybody who I know in my audience to get to know you, especially because you're also, Kirsty TV is moving along with what always does, which always you do, which is, attempting to heal the traumas of the past. And the beauty of what I've experienced with you, and I resonate with it because I've done this myself, which is we first experience it ourselves. And then as we experience it, we open to the world and want to share it and share how we have all these opportunities to heal. So please tell us about your process, what you're up to, and what we can all do to get there together with you.
I think what you just said, it's interesting because you have to be ready to share a secret. And that actually was part of the 6-week course that we did together on shame. Like the first module was know yourself, because I remember thinking if we tell people to go out there and share their truths, and it can be heavy sometimes, sexual abuse. For me at that time, it was a TEDx around herpes, shame, if you're not ready, and then you have people come at you and it's really sad, but I get a lot of emails from people whose families don't support them and friends don't support them and can turn on them and judge them. And I think you've got to be ready to put this out there. And when you said that just now, I thought, this is the first interview I'm doing in 6 years. Because I haven't wanted to talk about all this yet, because I've been processing it for me. I've taken a step back. I haven't done Kirsty TV interviews. We're doing our first one after this, exchanging with each other. And I can't wait to have you on that. But I have really had to take the time to process, to integrate, to honor my body, to be with all the trauma that surfaced, and to finally feel like I'm in a place where I'm now ready to share that with other people, because I know that when we share our stories, we heal ourselves and we heal others. And our stories are medicine for other people. And that the Me Too that comes from someone hearing your interviews and the stories that you share is something that they can't get from anywhere else. Where do you go when you first have repressed memories come in, when you first get herpes, when you first have cancer diagnosis, whatever it is for you, you want to hear from other people who really get it, the kinds of questions that you want to ask. Only a person who's been a survivor and been through that fire and come out the other side really can answer those questions, right?
Absolutely. And I think that you're originally from Australia, and then you came and lived in the United States. And then your background, for people who don't know you, is that you were a speaker. You were known as the Oprah of Australia, and you had your shows, and you came to US and you had Kirsty TV and really working out there, putting yourself out there, being in companies and being a keynote speaker in different companies and all of that. And then you went through and then you had your TEDx where you decided that I'm going to be really working on myself. And then based on that, you took on this transformational path of becoming a healer yourself. So it wasn't just, you went out there, you then went in and then became a healer, where to really look at what healing can do. And it's amazing of watching you see that as you're going through this progress yourself, so many layers are opening. And I got this when I became a therapist, right? So first I went to therapy because I wanted to see what's going on. Then a lot opened up for me. Then I became a therapist. And there isn't a day that I keep opening layers and layers of who we are, and how much that when you bring all of these layers out and release them, how free we all feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's so much in there. For me, I agree. You think in the beginning, I remember my ego 6 months. So I was corporate motivational speaker, as you shared. I was at the top of my game. I had dipped my toe in the water with shame and the TEDx talk. And it was like my career was splitting into these two different kind of areas. And what I found is that, there was this path where I was sharing about self-help, but from the perspective of self-awareness in something that was palatable in the corporate world. They weren't quite ready to talk about shame and secrets and herpes and sexual abuse and all those kinds of topics. But I was really drawn towards that. And the TEDx was kind of this like defining moment in my career, that once I did that, then I was getting emails from people. How do we be as brave as you? How do I get to a point where I could talk about this? I can't even tell a partner or my family, let alone the whole world. And that was when I developed the program that you were a part of. And it was just like, well, what would I tell people? How do we go back to the beginning? And having the courage to put that out there at the time when I was so corporate was really scary for me. I remember thinking, are people going to find this now on the websites, on the Google and all the internet back then? And it was really scary. And now what I know is that I probably did lose business, but there were also clients. I remember doing a women's event with Xerox, and they had 50 women, keynote speakers they were looking at. And out of those, I got down to the final 3 or 4, and one of them was like a famous actress, celebrity, and the other was like a really high profile speaker, and I would be considered a baby one against them. And they chose me. And I remember asking them, why did you choose me? What was that process like? And they said, you were the only person the board was unanimous on, and it was because of your TEDx talk. And they didn't necessarily want me to talk on shame at this particular women's event, but they wanted someone vulnerable enough to speak their truth. And that was the beginning for me of a seed planted of like having the courage to be brave and to put a truth out there and to follow your intuition and your gut and your heart. And from there, fast forward 8-9 years, I have repressed memories come through at about age 40. I start remembering being abused as a child. It was incredibly traumatic. I didn't know, my whole world's crashing. I can't get out of bed, let alone be on stage. And that I would call, when you were talking about then how through healing ourselves, we end up healing others. For me, it was like an initiation. I feel like I got pulled back and stripped away and broken down. And at the time, none of us want that. My ego was saying, this better not take more than 6 months. Well, it took 6 years. And, at the time, I wouldn't have been able to understand that. My ego was fighting so hard to just be in stay, they were all my coping skills. Working, being a workaholic was one of my coping skills. So not being able to work, not having my identity as a speaker, not being on stage, not having success in the way that it had been there for all those years, really broke me down. And it was like I consider it like 3 things happened at once. The repressed memories came in. The ego death happened because I had this identity collapse that I couldn't do. And I had a spiritual awakening at the same time. I started having access to guides and channeling and working with plant medicines and all kinds of information. So it was like this trifecta that had to happen because it made it beautiful in a way. Like there was this pain and this tearing me open and memories and trauma, but there was also this like beauty and magic and access to new gifts and information that I didn't even know. You know, I thought we were just human skin, not that we could dissolve and be energy. So having the trifecta happen, I think really protected me and allowed it to be something beautiful. But yeah, those three things were all going on at once. And then that kind of shifted me into deeply, I think for 20 years as a motivational speaker and as someone who had been in the self-awareness space, I'd always been doing, you know, NLP and classes and courses, but this was like an initiation into the healing arts that I could never have imagined.
I remember seeing you. You had come from Mexico because you live in Mexico right now, and you do a lot of your resorts and retreats and you know, work in Mexico. So you had come and done a retreat in Los Angeles again, and I remember we went to dinner with some of your friends, and I kept looking at you, and we did another lunch, and I kept looking at you and seeing the distinct difference of my experience of you, which was interesting, where before you were a powerhouse of a woman. Like you walked into the stage, or, you know, you had a talk, which I think we had, 400 people in the room, and it was you, we coordinated it with other women, which was a self kind of progress and self awareness kind of seminar.
Truth Teller Summit, I think it was.
Yes, yes. So you walked into the room and this powerhouse walked in. But then it was like you also went into this persona that you would walk into the stage, and you would walk into this powerful woman persona. And then when I met you again, when we went to lunch and that night, it was so interesting that when my experience of you was this innocent child. You know, you've seen like a 3-year-old, which they're powerful. They know who they are and they walk around, but there's this innocence and purity with this power that walks around. It's like a no nonsense, you know, like you could tell the truth. A 3-year-old will tell you the truth. They will look at you and tell you the truth. It is their truth. And they have, you know, we look at children vulnerable, and I look at them like their powerhouse is like, they got it. They got everything. And my experience of you was that when you talk about the ego dissolving, that the power was no longer coming from that space of ego. The power was coming from like, you know, damn well who you are as a human being, because right now in your body as a human being, that's who you are. And it was the vulnerability, the innocence, the purity, and then yes, the power. And you've seen that, you know, we see this with animals, right? Like you could walk in and like suddenly see a tiger in front of you, and you're at this awe of wow, like there's this natural beauty, there's this natural power that is there, and then yet there's this purity that is there. So I've watched you grow into this space.
Yeah.
Just wanted to share that with you. It's the first time.
I think firstly, I think when you said that, I also have never thought of a child in that way. But what I think you're also tuning into is they're the ultimate truth tellers. There is no filter, you know. You know, the old Kirsty with the ego would have had to over prepare. She couldn't eat before going on stage. She would be worried about all these different things. And I didn't prepare a single question for our interview. So that transition that you noticed, what I feel in my body around it is I have a groundedness now and a deep inner trust that wasn't there before. There was so much unworthiness, so much fear, so much anxiety that I wasn't even aware of. That was just how I operated. I was a fucking powerhouse. Can we say that? I'm an Australian. Beep. I was a powerhouse, but I built my life on having to prove myself and prove my worth and hustle and work 14-hour days and 7 days a week. And now I'll work maybe 3. And I don't have to throw as much shit at the wall hoping half of it will stick, because I have this centeredness and this connection to God, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, that I know that the 2 things that I need to do today will come to me and I will do them, and they will be it. And if anything else is a bonus. But there is a trust and a groundedness that wasn't there before.
You just said the word, because as you were speaking, it was just like, you know what? The trust has to be there, that no matter what shows up is the right thing that shows up. And how to get to that safety and the trust that whatever shows up is to my benefit, right? And I got to watch and I got to get into it. So tell us about the process that you want to share with people, and in how to go from all of us, most of us, who go through anxiety in life and, hold on to that anxiety. And we got to, we have our goals and we got to go there and, create it, versus to the place that we are. And I'm a believer that you got to build the ego before you could let it go. You can't just not have it and then just not be egoless, because that's part of our growth. But to build it in a way that makes us powerful, and then know where it is that we need to open the grips of the ego, and then kind of have this kind of a trust, like within ourselves, within the whole system, not only the system of our body, but that system that's around us. Can you share with us what your path is, and what is it that you're sharing with others, and how to get there?
I think that the first thing I'll say is, you don't know what you don't know. I don't think I had any awareness. So if someone's listening and they're hearing a resonance in that I'm a workaholic, or I'm at the gym all the time, or I'm numbing with food, sex, drugs, alcohol, or I can't find a healthy relationship, like all of those are symptoms and glaringly, obviously, signs that our ego is on fire and maybe running the show at this point, and can be for very good reasons. What I found is all of that was there to help me survive, because I would not have been capable of dealing with the memories that were going to come through 10 years before, 20 years before. So it was there for good reason. And it took 6 years to dismantle it. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And now as much as Kirsty in year 1 and year 2 and year 3 was pushing and wanting answers and wanting it finished and wanting it done, there was another part of me, when we look at internal family systems models, and I work a lot with parts, I find it super useful. But there was a part who was a freaking Emmy award winning. I mean, this is a girl she took me, who could have ended up in a psych ward had it all come through. And she was able to block and suppress this and keep it somewhere away from me, and then take me to meet Oprah and speak on stages where George Bush was on stage with thousands of people, and to make millions of dollars. And I call her the Emmy award winning, like Oscar, like she deserves that freaking Emmy for what she achieved with the mask. And then there's also a part of me who I think of as my healer. She's a shaman, she's a warrior, she's a badass, demon slaying. She has an ability to face what's there now at this age. So what I would say is, we can all have I didn't have any awareness at the level of disassociation that was going on for me, and whether that's extreme for someone or whether that's food, sex, drugs, alcohol, all the minor ways that we do. First, you need to know yourself. And that's what we started off with in this conversation today. It's like, how do I be willing to know myself? Because I couldn't sit. I bought a meditation cushion and it sat in a corner for a year. I could not sit still. I couldn't get into a yoga class. I would get so annoyed and angry and frustrated with people and had no idea why. And again, these were all really great Emmy award-winning coping skills that were protecting me. And so I would say, start really slow. Start with getting to know yourself, whether that's knowing yourself by connecting to your body through a sauna, through cold plunging, through a massage, through being able to just take an hour to do nothing. I couldn't do nothing. I was a 14-hour-day businesswoman hustler, and that kept me safe. So my first step was booking a 1-hour massage, because I had to have it scheduled for self-care. I didn't know what to do to just sit and do nothing. So I would say start with small steps of how can I get to know myself. Take yourself on a vacation, take yourself to the movie theater, go and do a sacred silence meditation and really push your buttons. And then for me, probably I think that everything helped over the years, the psychotherapy, the EMDR, every modality on the planet I tried at some point. I would say for me, plant medicines opened a door that I don't know if I could have ever gotten to, specifically with the repressed memories and feeling safe to go to hell and back. When we're talking about war, PTSD from war veterans witnessing limbs being blown and incest survivors, that level of trauma is very hard to face in a fully conscious present. There's something that EMDR therapy, psilocybin therapy enables you in a safe held container to be able to go back into a memory and have the full sensory experience of being in that moment, whether you're 5 years old or 40 years old, and the terror of it. That for me, I don't know if I would have been able to be in those moments in other ways. The other modalities help build the resiliency and the trust and the safety for parts to come to the surface. They helped with regulating my nervous system on a daily basis and being able to function in the world again. They all helped in different ways.
And when you're talking about plant medicine, are you talking specifically about psilocybin or ayahuasca, or is this something, or is it a combination of what works for people necessarily after they've done their journey? Because there's a lot more to this journey than, somebody just on a fun basis as a party, they'll just take, they're like, I had fun, but
I'll speak from both perspectives, from as a medicine woman who holds space for people and is trauma informed, and as someone who experienced it and lived it. So one, I want to put a warning. This is not for everyone, and you have to be ready, and you have to make sure you choose the right person that's safe. The set and the setting are everything. My experience of going into ayahuasca at first in Peru with a shaman, they were not trauma informed, and they didn't have the capacity to hold that. I was very lucky that half of my friends, like you, Foojan, are psychotherapists, and I was able to pick up the phone and talk to so many people to integrate what had happened. So I don't regret my journey. It was what was needed for me. And I went on a path with using many different medicines after that, and went into an initiation as a medicine woman. But I think that people need to really be conscious. Do they have, not just is the experience going to be safe if something were to come up, because I never expected this in a million years, and it went deeper than I could have known. And I didn't know that the medicine would have like a neural pathway that would just go back to the trauma again and again and again and again. So for me, it's something that I think that people need to really think about, because you never know what can come up, right? You're going into your psyche. And secondly, afterwards, you need the space holders, you need the therapists, you need the someone who can help you make sense of it and integrate it and understand it. And that can take years. So for me, and then with my medicine woman hat on, I predominantly work with psilocybin 90% of the time, and I only use it in 20% of cases. So, I had 2 girls that I worked with who'd been kidnapped by the cartel and human trafficked, and we did not use any plant medicines. They had done 10 years of EMDR and ayahuasca and other therapies, and we ended up deciding that regression and hypnosis and breath work were better for them. And they had a amazing result in half a day of sessions that they said had taken them further than the other 10 years. Now, I think that's because those 10 years were necessary though, and they were ready and they were safe. But sometimes you don't need to push the psyche, and you need to do things in a grounded way when you're going into repressed memories. For others, like myself, there can be a safety in being able to feel something that's too traumatic to feel. And that is if they want to go back into it. Some people don't need to. If they have all their memories and they've had them their whole life, they may not want to be revisiting any of that. But if they dissociated and they left their body, and for me, what occurred is that my somatic body stored the memories, and I would turn away and not remember the abuse. It was laying in bed or behind me, and I then astral traveled, lucid dreams, disassociated, and went somewhere else. I didn't have to be with it. So my body had memories that my mental parts had left and split off, right? So the body, what mushrooms in particular do, and when you're talking about the difference between them all, MDMA is like, I wouldn't consider it a classical plant medicine, but it's still a healing medicine. It brings you into a love and a bliss state. So there's a capacity to feel ugliness and heaviness and darkness that for many of us would be hard to access other ways. And when you go in, as you said, it's not just about taking this in your bedroom. This is about being with a licensed therapist who's trained in this, and they understand how to take you through a process that safely allows you to go back into the moment and have the sensory experience, which for me meant with mushrooms, they're very earthy. An MDMA and LSD take me into my psyche, take me into the rooms of my mental construct, my OCD part, the ways that I cope, right? But mushrooms take me into the body. They're very earthy, and you'll dissolve if you can go deep enough, and you'll lose human form, and you'll be in this state of a non-ordinary state of consciousness that allows you to access something that, for me, it was like pulling a veil. It was right beneath the surface, but I was too terrified to feel it most of the time. And this was a way for me to be able to be with it in a safe container with a safe person, and to go deeper into it. And that's part of the work that I do with people when I feel it's needed.
I developed the awareness integration therapy, and many of, because right now the plant medicine kind of treatment and psychoactive treatments are so well known, that when I've done a lot of the research, and I actually work with some of the people, talk to some of the people who are doing this work in UCLA and with MAPS and John Hopkins, many of these treatments are just kind of concentrating on the specifics of how any of these plant medicines are working in research. But exactly what you said, what I found is when we have prepared the client beforehand of going what it is that they needed, and then also started looking that after they went through whether they went through ketamine, infusions, or they went through the 4 to 6 hours of psilocybin experience, or ayahuasca, or even MDMA, and what happens afterward. It takes weeks of integration of what they found and what they want to do. That I also saw that, among a lot of the type of psychotherapy that was done, that AIT, awareness integration, was really, really working to ground people, figure it out, and really expand those concepts. So it's so important of what you said. And another thing you were sharing, which I personally experienced.
Press pause though, because I don't want to forget this. What I think people need to understand is, especially when you work with a psilocybin, it's a plant medicine. It's a consciousness, and it has been alive longer than most things on the planet. And when you take this into your field, it has a divine intuition that no human brain has, and psyche and ego has the capacity to understand. It will blow to smithereens everything that you've ever thought. Most people who do a psilocybin journey, I think they shared one particular study that was done for cancer patients, said this was like one of the #1 spiritual experiences they'd ever had in their lifetime. So when we talk about taking psilocybin, that's one thing. Go and have a spiritual experience, go be with nature, see things in like a whole other way, have your mind blown. When you want to heal trauma with it, you can't think the mushrooms are just going to do that by themselves. So that's where what you're talking about, the before and the after, the guiding where the neural pathways are going to go. So if we, for example, one of the things that I do in just a snippet to share is we would look at something like a part, right? An internal family systems model. And we might go, okay, how about if I share with this client that they have a part that is a superhero? And when we go in and we meet something that is really dark or really heavy, or we meet their 4-year-old self, they're going to remember that they have this part who is there as the adult going in with this cape on and going in there and rescuing that little one. And we're going to be able to take them out. And they remember this if I have guided them on this well enough. And then when we're in the journey, I can use that as a guide to say, hey, remember that part? Like, now's the moment. We're going to have that superhero there. We're going to go in, we're going to rescue that little one, and we're going to create a corrective experience. Now, that's a very small piece. I know you get it. I'm not sure if everyone on the call might understand that if they haven't studied IFS, but these are ways that we're bringing together a tool from the Western modern world. Is that the Western world? We say that when we say modern world, with shamanism and with the medicine. And that's why I caution people to just go out into the jungles in Peru, particularly if you have depression, anxiety, bipolar, a history of trauma. You know, stuff can come up that you are not aware of. And, you know, I've had clients referred to me who did a bufo, which is a very strong plant medicine. And this woman had gone into like a Christ in it. She thought she was God, you know, God complex. Her ego was on fire, like bringing this person back in to integrate and into, you know, it was too much for her what happened. So I think that it is so important when we are talking about plant medicines, specifically around using it to heal PTSD and trauma, that we really are careful with what we say to people and how we recommend it, and that it's not just, oh, this worked for me and it was amazing, right?
Yes, very much. Because I, just like you, I have heard horror stories in my sessions with people who have come in and have had, you know, a weekend or a day, or even
re-traumatization.
Yes.
You know, it's a re-traumatization. If you're in this very vulnerable, very open state and you're in a child state and this person doesn't know what to do with it and they don't know your history and they don't know that you're literally regressing in that moment, it can be really re-traumatizing.
Yes. And you were so right about finding the people who can really support you through the process. When you shared about that, was even without the plant medicine. I remember I went to Colombia for a plant medicine journey with ayahuasca, but before we even did any of that, part of the whole journey was the different types of like a psychological work and breath work. And I remember, you know, I've been sexually abused from age 3 to 8. Different times, different people, different concepts. And I had worked so much on myself for, you know, almost 20, 30 years of like you said, every single psychotherapy modality that I could ever use. And I thought I had cleaned up. And many of those things have been cleaned up. They're not there anymore on all of it. They don't get triggered anymore because they've all cleaned up. And Kirsty, amazingly enough, we're doing this group work. There was no plant medicine there. It was just, we're doing group work about you know, creating trust and coming to anybody who had abused someone or was abused, anyone who lied and could lie and was lied to, come into the center and then And you can't believe it. I walked into the center, which was about the abuse. Has everybody been abused or abused someone sexually? And I walked into the center because I was abused sexually. And then suddenly almost like a cellular memory started like opening up and like pouring this vibration all over this part of my hip started going and releasing and releasing. And it was like the body memory was still there, although I had worked so much on myself. So it's so important for people to know that if they've had a trauma in their life, whether it was a physical abuse, a neglect, or sexual abuse, any type of trauma that they've had, that the journey that your body is going through to holding on for you to survive, it's a lot. Like every cell of your body is one of those, heroes with the cape, which is trying to make you survive. But it's done at such a high cost to our energy level, right? So when you have the ability to release this mental and physical traumas from your body, you can imagine the level of energy that comes into your heart and your body and your focus, where you can do whatever you want. It's like you've released all of these shackles from yourself. And it's so beautiful to be able to do that. And I love it that although, psychotherapy is its own modality, but the integrative concept of bringing so many layers together, because each one of them could be limited in one layer. And then as you bring all of these things together, it has such an amazing impact.
Yeah, I think, the way I see it is like it's the same as like LSD tackling the mental structures and mushrooms tackling the body. Psychotherapy, I think, for the most part, tackles those mental structures, the parts. It helps you see yourself, your ego, your child parts, all the different ways. And then breath work, another great way to access the soma. Dance, but yesterday I was doing like some African dance with the rattle and the drum and moving stuff out cellularly, because I could feel it coming up, another memory, another wave. I have stuff that's stuck, and I now know how to move that out without having to do a huge psilocybin journey or a big breathwork session. I can do it in like 5 minutes because I'm in my body again now, but it took a long time to get back in my body. Two things come up when you were sharing that. One, I had a similar experience with a medicine that, even cacao, which is not technically a plant medicine, but it is a heart chakra opener. And as soon as I had the cup in my hand, I could feel the vibration, because I'm so attuned now. I can take a tenth of a dose that another client might have, and they'll barely feel anything, and I'm gone. So this sensitivity and attunement happens. I, like you, had an experience where I started purging diarrhea and vomiting before they'd even given me the medicine. And this was a purgative medicine. And I thought, wow, as soon as you're ready and you're open and you're in the field, your body knows what to do. And especially if you start allowing, once I had songs start coming through me, I'd be in bed and I just start making these sounds like, oh, and it was like a wailing and a crying and a screaming that it became. And I looked it up, and sure enough, toning is a thing. Now, where had this is collective consciousness. I'd somehow tapped into the field, and my body knew what to do. It started remembering. But at first, this stuff can seem weird and so crazy. And so you've got to trust the healing process that you're led on. I had been called to ayahuasca 3 years in a row and would not go and was not ready. And I'm so glad I didn't until I got a full 100% yes in my body. There were so many other things I needed to do before that, and the breath work and the regression and all these other modalities, EMDR, psychotherapy, all were building my resiliency, my strength, my mental strength, not to end up in a psychiatric ward. As I unraveled this, and as you said, everything's been holding it, and that takes so much energy. And it's not something that can just be let like a floodgate that you can just open up like a fire hose of trauma.
There is no shortcut. I just want everybody to know there's no shortcut.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, if you want to be healed, it takes work. But the point is that at times hard, but it's a beautiful work. It's a beautiful journey.
It is.
And the part of it is that as the healing goes on and you come to the next level of it, you really feel free. Our time is about done. I hate it for us to complete, but more and more will, I'd love for you to keep coming back. Anything we haven't shared that you want to share?
I think let's end on that piece that you just said of it's beautiful. I don't want people, as sorry as I am to say that it will not take 6 months because I learned the hard way. I also am not the woman I was 6 years ago. And I'm so grateful for that. I have peace and I can meditate for hours and I can work less and I can still have abundance and money and love and all the things in my life. I'm finally letting intimacy back in. I think that there's so many ways that trauma impacts us for decades, and it's worth spending the decades unraveling that. It's worth loving yourself enough to do this work and to go into the fiery parts slowly and gently and lovingly as you're guided to the right first step for you, whether that's a psychotherapy session or a breathwork session or a regression Zoom. There's so many things out there, and you will know the right next step. You will meet a person or hear a podcast or watch something and go, I need to try that.
Exactly. Where can people find you, Kirsty?
At Kirsty TV is my handle, Kirsty TV, on YouTube, on Instagram mostly, Facebook, and just reach out in any way that they feel ready to.
Website? My
website is my old domain, kirstyspraggon.com, KIRSTYSPRAGGON.com, and same with my email. I'm about to change that so they can email me. I'm sure I'll redirect it to begin with. And that will be, retreats down in Mexico. If anyone wants to come down either privately or in a group, we do beautiful healing retreats that they can become a part of with and without medicine.
Beautiful. It was so nice to have you and to see you again.
You too.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.